All right, in this episode, we talk about arm rotation timing
and the rubber band effect.
All right, Brent Porcio, Stephen Godon here at the @TopVelocity #PitchAndTips show, where you go to Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, @TopVelocity #PitchAndTips. You ask your question, we answer it on the show. And I'd like to say, if you've asked a question somewhere like on YouTube, someone kind of thrown out there and you think we haven't gotten to it, we are a little behind, go back to Twitter and tweet it. Just a little bit easier for us to follow things on Twitter right now. So if we missed it, go back to Twitter and send it to us again. We promise you we'll get to it, doing our best to keep up. We're getting going pretty far.
High volume.
Yeah, we're getting close to, I think this is episode 78, maybe. And you know, we're setting up to, I'm shooting for episode 100. We open up to baseball tips. So we can start talking about our 2X programs as well. Okay, so what's our question for today? Hannes asks, when the upper body separates, the upper arm is abducted horizontally. When is the upper arm abducted horizontally? He also asks, what is the timing and sequence of upper arm rotation, and forearm extension? I've talked about the arm action several times in past episodes. You know, I'm just going to talk about it again. I know it's a big thing. Try not to reiterate. I'll stick to these questions specifically, but I will post the arm action video here. If you haven't seen it, I basically walk it from the beginning to the end, following the science and what correlates to arm injury and ball speed. Okay, so in this question, when the body separates, so that's hips to shoulders separates, when do we horizontally abduct? So horizontal abduction is basically, shoulder abduction is lifting the arm out. So think you're being abducted, so the arm is going away from the body. When it comes back, that's adduction. You're adding it, adduction. But horizontally is going to be, to the horizontal or to the floor. Anything behind the back is going to be abduction. Anything in the front of the face will be adduction. So, studies do show high velocity pitchers typically get more horizontal abduction than low velocity pitchers. But you got to be careful. It is a double-edged sword. You go too far, a little too much strain on the rotator cuff. Okay, but you do want to try to get a good amount of it. So going into front foot strike is usually the point where separation really starts to open up, going into front foot. So the moment we really want to, because the question asks is when do we want to horizontally abduct? The moment we really want to horizontally abduct is the moment we stabilize front leg, because it's a lever. When we stabilize front leg, okay, the front leg is down. At the same time too, we want our hips to be as open as we can get them at that point. So that's the challenge of the front foot. We want to stabilize and get the hips open as quick as we can, okay? And of course we're still separated, but the moment that happens, we land, stabilize, hips open, that's the moment we horizontally abduct. So it's like this, boom, boom. And this is applying leverage against the hips, so creating more separation. The elbow, or you're loading that scap, you're pulling it back as your hips are opening, and it's leveraging hip-shoulder separation and creating more torque and a later release in the arm, which is going to transfer more of that energy in the arm when the trunk has time to accelerate to the target, and that's the moment the arm externally rotates. So the point of horizontal abduction is going to be, ideally, the moment of front foot strike when we stabilize that leg and we open our hips. The other question was, what is the timing and sequence of upper arm rotation, and forearm extension? Okay, I don't want to reiterate too much because I will start reiterating a lot of that video talking about arm action, but when we hit front foot, okay, we leveraged horizontally with the elbow, okay? We're gonna try to stay in flexion and gonna cock into 90 degrees, and that starts external rotation. And as we go into shoulder rotation, that should lay us back into external rotation, more or full external rotation. And when we go into full external rotation, we go into supination, because then the wrist starts to load. Because the opposite of shoulder external rotation forearm supination is shoulder internal rotation, pronation, which is a reactive phase to the action of external rotation, supination. So as the shoulder rotates, the trunk moves forward, the arm externally rotates, the forearm supinates, and then at the moment that energy stops and is ready to come forward, internal rotation, pronation. All right, so I don't want to, I think I actually had another question coming up that talks about pronation. I'm gonna save it for that episode, so look out for the next episode if you really want to learn more about pronation. But I think that pretty much sums it up really quick without kind of, reiterating everything we've covered in the past. If you want to, also go in the past and check out some of those videos that we talked about more arm action stuff. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, the simplest way to think of it that really helps me is the idea of it being a rubber band. You're launching the hip forward as hard and as far as you can, and this is pulling back. So that's the idea of your rubber band. Is this is pulling back the rubber band, this is pushing the rubber band forward, and then you're letting it go, and that's what's going to let everything spring out.
Yeah, and the hard thing to understand is there's the leverage, or I won't say the leverage, but it's the different, what is leverage, but there's kind of a chain reaction of events happening. Following hip rotation and separation, you go into shoulder rotation, and then the action of shoulder rotation is creating the reaction of external rotation, supination. And then that's actually an action in itself, and then it creates the reaction of internal rotation, pronation. So understand that there's that sequence of, it's like drive, load, drive, release, okay? So understand it's a sequence moving up the chain, accelerating at each lever, what they call proximal to distal timing. So you want to time it perfectly to where the next lever starts the moment the previous lever peaks. If you really want to get into this stuff, it's physics, man, and it can get really, really advanced and really trying to understand how to maximize the kinetic chain. Okay, good question. Go to Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, @TopVelocity, #pitching-tips. Ask your question, we answered it on the show. If you haven't already, go to topvelocity.net. We got 3X camps coming up. We'd love to have you down here. Come down to the camp, stay here for 3X training. If you want to stay longer, Steven has a place. Guys come down here and live with Steven, live with Kevin, and they train, or they find places here and they train. Or they're like Jared, and they get a job too, and they make it a good run and get a lot of work out of it. Mm-hmm. All right, so ask your questions. See you on the next episode.
Yeah. Holla, we them boys. Holla, we them boys.